Coming up on Sports Weekly, the Braves meet the Phillies in a battle of front-runners. Would Nixon get impeached? Bonds was a giant as San Fran met the Padres. And another baseball legend retires. George Brett calls it quits.
I think the game just beat me, which it beats everybody in time.
Rumble! We went to a fight yesterday and a college football game broke out. We'll show you all the action. Nolan Ryan reflects on a brilliant career in our Sunday conversation. How does he rate himself among the all-time greats?
I think at one time I was probably as dominating as there was in the league.
Jim McMahon and the Vikings offense have been far from dominating this season. We'll examine the solution to their woes. Can't we all just get along? Come on. Now that's more like it. A full hour of Sports Weekly is next.
And welcome to Sunday Sports Day, September 26, 1993. 2 hours of news, views, reviews, and previews, highlights and sidelights, cheers and jeers. Just the other day, baseball had 4 pennant races. Now there's only 1, but it's a beauty. The teams with the 2 best records in baseball coming down to the wire, neck and neck. Robin Roberts is with us, as usual, to guide us through our opening hour, Sports Weekly. And Robin, I know you're a Braves fan, but you're also a fan of a good story. And don't you think it'd be a terrific story if Barry Bonds and the Giants, practically written off a week ago, came back and caught Atlanta?
Well, since it's your birthday tomorrow, I'll let you get away with calling me a Braves fan. You know I'm a true sports fan. And yes, that storyline would be good about the Giants, especially with Dusty Baker his first year. But also a good story, Dick. The Braves' third second-half comeback. That's good, too.
Sure, you can root for Denver and Buffalo to get to the Super Bowl also.
Yeah, well, I'll get back to you on that, all right? Well, since Dick brought it up, let's begin with the NL West saga, the only real pennant race left. The other 3 are pretty much decided. Many look at the Braves matchup this weekend with the Phillies as the NLCS preview. The Giants, of course, think otherwise, but yesterday's game had all the drama of a playoff game. In the 7th inning, 4-3 Braves. Jeff Blauser on second. Ron Gant gets a hold of Larry Anderson's pitch. Mickey Morandini can't handle it, and Blauser scores 5-3 Braves. They made it 6-3. The Phils come back in the bottom of the inning. John Kruk smokes one to center. Morandini scores easily from second, and Kruk beats the throw for a triple. 6-4 Braves. The Phils were tied at 6-all, but mistakes struck again in the 8th. Roger Mason pitching. Dion on first, and Otis Nixon bloops one to left. Pete Incaviglia charges it and gets past him. Primetime scores 7-6 Braves. They go on to win by a final of 9-7. Otis Nixon had 3 hits. He stole 2 bases and scored twice. Greg McMichael with his 16th save. Steve Bedrosian picked up the win. The Phillies' magic number remains 4. Could the Giants continue their magic of late? Robbie Thompson out with a fractured cheekbone on Friday night. In the bottom of the second, no score until Barry Bonds gets a hold of a 3-0 pitch. A solo shot, number 42 on the year for Bonds. Giants up 1-0. Then, bottom of the 4th, it's still 1-0. It is Bonds again. This time to left center. A solo shot again, number 43. Giants up 2-0. And it was enough for the rookie, Salomon Torres, as he gets Archie Cianfrocco swinging, and Kurt Manwaring guns Phil Plantier at second. And the Giants go on for the 3-1 victory. Salomon Torres allowed 3 hits over 8 innings as the Giants win their 4th straight. Rod Beck recorded his 43rd save. So the Giants keep the pressure on the first-place Braves in the NL West. Atlanta's magic number is now 7. Steve Avery gets the start today against the Phils, while Billy Swift goes for win number 20 against the Pods. Looking at what's ahead for these 2 this week, the Braves are 7-3 against the Stros this season and a perfect 10-0 against the Rockies. The Giants finish up with 2 more against the Padres. Then it's the Rockies, who they've recorded 9-2 against, and they finish up with 4 in Los Angeles. You know the Dodgers will be ready. They've won 6 of 9 against the Giants so far this season. And the Expos kept their slim postseason hopes alive by handing the Mets their 102nd loss of the season. The Expos have won 13 of their last 17 and 25 of 31. And thanks to that torrid tear, the Expos have moved within 5 games of the first-place Phillies in the East. With 8 games to play, the Phillies' magic number, as I said, remains 4. Now for the story. In the American League, beginning in the East, the Yanks and the Jays going head-to-head at Sky Dome, a crucial series in the Yanks' quest to keep their playoff hopes alive, and the Yankees missed plenty of opportunities on Saturday. In the third, Don Mattingly grounds into the 6-4-3 DP. Then in the seventh, 2 men on, and Danny Cox gets Pat Kelly on the slider. Eighth inning, 2 men on. Mike Stanley grounds into the 4-6-3 twin killing. And the Jays oh so close to hanging another banner at Skydome. The Jays win 3-1. It's the 12th win in 13 games for the Jays. Frank Tanana lost for the second time in as many starts with the Yanks. The Tigers-Orioles game was postponed due to rain. They're scheduled to play 2 today, weather permitting. The Jays' magic number for clinching drops to 2 as they move closer to their third straight AL East crown. The best the Yanks can hope for is a tie, and not much chance of that happening the way the Jays have been playing lately. Since September 10th, they've only lost once in 13 games. Hitting, pitching, pretty much the story. As a team, the Jays are batting over 300 with a team ERA of 2.75. As for the AL West, Saturday's game between the front-running White Sox and the Rangers was postponed because of rain. The game will be made up as part of a doubleheader today. And by sweeping today's games, the Sox could clinch their first AL West title in 10 years. They lead Texas by 7 games with 9 left to play. And turning our attention to college football, San Diego State's Marshall Faulk turned a lot of heads last year as just a sophomore when he was a serious contender for the Heisman Trophy. But Faulk has had trouble putting up the big numbers this season. Let's see if he could be different against Minnesota on Saturday as we take a look at highlights.
At the 41-yard line.
Marshall Faulk. This is his longest run of the year, and it goes for 32 yards. But more often, Faulk was stuffed. He stopped cold. He only had 81 yards on 22 carries. Everyone talks about Faulk, but what about Darnay Scott? Tim Gutierrez throws deep to Scott, the touchdown. Check out this play. You may never see anything like this again. The field goal attempt. Now, one official, look, he says good. The other one goes, well, talks to his buddy and goes, no good. San Diego State wins by a final of 48-17. As I said, Faulk, 22 carries, 81 yards, 1 touchdown. Gutierrez completed 32 of 48 passes for 375 yards and 4 touchdowns in his first college start. The Aztecs are now 3-1. Would Rutgers or Penn State remain undefeated? Tony Sacca benched again, watched from the sidelines, up 10-0 in the second. His replacement, pretty darn good. Kerry Collins, the timing pattern to tight end Kyle Brady. 17-0 Nittany Lions at the half. A quarterback? Yes, Joe Paterno, you have a quarterback. From the 1, Collins finds a wide open Brady again. That blows the game open. 24-0 Penn State. And Collins shined in the rain. 31-7 was the final. Kerry Collins was 18 of 25 for 222 yards and 4 touchdowns. Penn State improves to 4-0 on the year. Rutgers is now 2-1. We certainly are glad you decided to join us again this Sunday morning. Now, don't worry if you miss anything this week. We'll bring you up to speed over the next hour, including Nolan Ryan's farewell after 27 years in the big leagues. More on Ryan's last ride later. Nolan will also be remembered for his brawl with Robin Ventura. Unfortunately, many followed suit in college football yesterday, which was more like foot brawl. Back in a moment. After 20 years with the Kansas City Royals, George Brett announced his retirement yesterday afternoon. More on that in just a bit. Soon after the 40-year-old made known his plans for next year, he showed why he is the most popular player in the history of the Royals franchise as KC faced the Angels. A rather meaningless game, but a meaningful night for George Brett in front of the home crowd. 9th inning, Brett singles home Craig Wilson. Yeah, they love Mr. Brett. Plenty of applause, but not enough runs as the Angels win 6-2. Oakland at Seattle in the 8th. Ted Power serves up the grand slam to Ruben Sierra. The second of his career. A's go on to win by a final of 7-2. And back to the National League and the Cards and the Marlins, 2 teams looking ahead to next season. Florida won it very much to end their 4-game losing streak. 8th inning, St. Louis up 1-0. Chuck Carl's routine grounder is fielded by Todd Zeile, but Greg Jeffries lets it sail by him. Carr would score the tying run. Joe Torre's team with 2 errors in the 8th inning. Marlins win by a final of 2-1. Jose Rijo, another gem last night, gets Eric Wedge to chase the breaking ball. Vinny Castilla on the slider And Greg Harris completes the hat trick. Rijo a one-hitter, 8 strikeouts. Reds win 6-zip. Now for other Major League results from Saturday. And still more to tell you about yesterday's college football action. First, the real action. Alabama looking to extend the nation's longest current winning streak to 27 games as Bama faced Louisiana Tech. In the second quarter, Aaron Ferguson is picked off by Chris Donnelly. He goes back 72 yards for the score, tied up 21-0. Later, backup quarterback Brian Bergdorf replaced Jay Barker, and Bergdorf hooks up with you-know-who, David Palmer, for the score. Bama rolls 56-3. Miami and Colorado. Canes going for it on 4th down. Donnell Bennett gets a first down, breaks a tackle. First down and more. 46 yards for the score. 14-3 Miami. Late in the first half, Frank Costa pump fakes and finds a wide open Chris T. Jones as Miami would build a 20-point lead, but the Buffs come back, trailing by 6. Cordell Stewart looking for Charles Johnson, but it's broken up. Canes hold on 35-29. Notre Dame and Purdue playing in a driving rainstorm. Matt Pike is blindsided by Jeff Burris. The ball right into the hands of Brian Hamilton, who would score 7-0 Irish en route to a 17-zip win. Colorado State, Nebraska. Anthony Hills picked off by Toby Wright. Saw this a lot yesterday, going back for the score, 7-0 Huskers. The play broke it open, this one did. Tommy Frazier keeps it on the option. They roll 48-13. Houston and Michigan. Tyrone Wheatley's first of 3 touchdowns. He had 171 yards rushing yesterday. Then in the second, Todd Collins to Amani Toomer. Michigan doubles up the Cougars 42-21. Tulsa and Oklahoma in the first. Cale Gundy to Corey Warren. 10-6 Sooners. Tulsa regained the lead, but Gundy to Ricky Brady breaks 2 tackles and scores 41-20 the final. LSU and Tennessee in the SEC. Heath Schuler, 11-yard strike to Billy Williams. Later in the third, Schuler has trouble with the snap, but lofts the ball to Craig Faulkner. Vols roll 42-20. Arizona and Oregon State. Dan White pitches to Anawan Carter, who makes a great cutback, goes 79 yards for the score. Wildcats win 33-0. How about the upset of the day? UCLA and Stanford. Mike Mitchell runs left, gets stripped by Donnie Edwards. Marvin Goodwin recovers, and he goes 36 yards for the touchdown. 21-10 Bruins. Then in the fourth, it's 22-17 UCLA. Sharman Shah breaks it up the left side. Gets it down to the 1, setting up another Bruin touchdown. They hold on to win 28-25. Why don't we stay on campus with more gridiron scores from Saturday. Now for that other college action on Saturday. Fortunately, the kind we don't see that often, but in recent years when we do, Miami has been involved frequently. The Canes were involved in their 5th major fight in 5 years. Miami and Colorado late in the first half. Following a Miami kickoff, a huge brawl breaks out. Helmets flying, benches clear, 12 players ejected, 7 from Miami, 5 from Colorado. North Carolina and North Carolina State late in the first half as well. Jason Stanisic runs out of bounds. Ricky Bell pushes him, and the brawl erupts. More helmets swinging. No ejections in this one. After the game, 2 assistant coaches scuffled on the field. And Maryland and Virginia Tech late first half as well, following a blocked field goal attempt. The fight breaks out. More helmets swinging. Both benches cleared. State troopers came out to try to restore order. 4 ejections, 2 from each team. Bino Cook is about to join us to put some meaning behind all those brawls and highlights. So let's go back to Dick in New York. Dick?
Bino Cook has been both a student of and a spokesman for college football. And Bino, when you see something as ugly as the Miami-Colorado confrontations yesterday and those other confrontations, how badly does it stain your sport?
Well, It's getting worse, it seems, all the time in all sports with fights. But I think it's very simple. Number one, any fight on the field where the players come off the bench, those players should be ejected from the game. At least you have the fight contained with the players on the field and the officials could break it up. The problem, as you know, is when one team player goes into the other team's bench. And anybody who uses a helmet should be banned for 2 games at least. And you have to crack down. If you make the penalty tough, I think you'll be able to stop the fighting or cut it down.
But if your rule were enforced, there would have been nobody left to play in the Miami-Colorado game yesterday because everybody came off both benches.
Well, if they have the rule, they won't come off the bench. If you made the death, as George Will said, if you made double parking the death penalty, nobody would double park.
Okay, so a couple of teams have done amazing reversals this year. Wisconsin, California, Louisville, all undefeated, all had losing records last year. How do they turn it around so quickly?
Well, I think Wisconsin, again, is Barry Alvarez. I mean, this guy, you know, a lot of assistant coaches are geniuses when they're at Notre Dame, and then when they go somewhere else, they find out, well, we don't have the Notre Dame material, and they get fired. Barry Alvarez is the exception, and he is a superb coach. It's not easy, Richard, to win at Wisconsin, and it's obvious he's going to be in a decent bowl this year. California, new coaching staff last year. Disappointment after they had a good year in '91. They're going to be good this year. They're going to be in a bowl, and Louisville's amazing. They're independent, and it's unbelievable. And they beat
They're
Texas
not in your
easily.
top 5. Those 3 teams are not yet in your top 5. Who are your top 5 this week?
Well, I messed it up last week. I'm going to get it right this time in order. Number 5, Florida. Florida did not play. Notre Dame, number 4, struggled, but at Purdue in the rain, but managed to win. Number 3, Miami. I thought they would lose to Colorado, but I think Miami's going to lose every year. That's how much I know. Number 2, Florida State, and Alabama will stay number 1, in my poll at least, until they're beaten because they won the national title last year, and they're also a very good team.
Bino, you can go rest on your laurel and watch the sports reporters on the hour. Conlon, Lupica, and Ryan on brawls, buys, Brett, and more. But first, up next, a Brett retrospective, 5 years before Cooperstown.
As we said earlier here on Sports Weekly, George Brett announced his retirement yesterday after 20 years with the same team, the Kansas City Royals. That's unheard of nowadays, thanks to free agency. As Chris Myers explains, along with his numbers, Brett's mark on the game is his work ethic.
He was clutch. He was class. He is 40 years old.
I think the game just beat me, which it beats everybody in time. It beat Nolan Ryan. It took him 26 years to beat Nolan. Well, it took him 20 to beat me.
George Brett is royalty when it comes to loyalty. 20 years with the same team, putting up Hall of Fame numbers, all the while playing it like it was a game.
The game became a job. It wasn't a game anymore. And baseball shouldn't be treated that way.
His decision to retire was a close call. With 3,000-plus hits and a career .307 average, Brett wasn't up to his own standards this season.
When the team needed me, I wasn't there, and that was part of the decision. They needed someone to carry them when guys weren't playing well. They needed the pitching staff needed some guy to drive in runs when we weren't scoring, and I couldn't do that any longer.
He put Kansas City on the baseball map, from flirting with 400 in 1980 when he finished at 390, still the best since Ted Williams, to his dramatic home run off Goose Gossage, which landed the Royals in the World Series. There was his highest point, hugging Saberhagen when they won it all in 1985. There was his most comical moment. Pine Tar and Brett will be forever linked. All priceless memories.
This is my decision. The Royals were very fair in their offer of a contract. I had known I didn't want to play anymore. But when Hurt came in and offered me a contract to play, he could offer me more money than Wayne Gretzky was making, and the answer still would have been no.
Brett passed on more than $2 million to play for a $200,000 a year job as Royals vice president. His family has grown more, with a baby joining his wife, Leslie.
She stands behind me. You know, she stood behind me so far, and she knows it's going to cut her spending a little bit. And she's still standing by me, so. But the one thing that I am looking forward to is being home more. The travel over 20 years, I think, got me down a little bit.
No farewell tour for this man. The fans at the ballpark who cheered his hustle and desire for more than 2 decades provided enough reward.
The ovations that I got in Boston and the last few towns I was at were tremendous and gave me warmth inside, but that was enough for me.
George Brett may be leaving the field, but the impression he left on the game will remain.
My career's not ending, it's just taking a little detour right now. I'm looking forward to it very much.
Brett is the only player to win a batting title in 3 different decades, 1976, 80, and 1990. He will be the major's leading active hitter for 1 more week, batting over 300 for his career, including 11 300 seasons. And later here on Sports Weekly, we'll chat with yet another retiring legend, Nolan Ryan, in our Sunday conversation. Athletes have really been talking it up lately on late-night shows like Letterman and Conan. We'll see what all the talk is about next.
Wow.
A patriotic moment. The U.S. with a chance to clinch their Davis Cup match over the Bahamas yesterday. Richie Renneberg and Pat McEnroe at net. Finally, Renneberg gets the winner. U.S. fans pleased with McEnroe and Renneberg's play. U.S. wins 6-7, 7-5, 6-4, and 6-2. The United States had to defeat the Bahamas to remain in the world group, and the Americans came through. This is the last match for Captain Tom Gorman. His replacement has not yet been named. Oh, by the way, in the Davis Cup final in December, Germany will host Australia. When you talk about patriotism, I don't know about you, but the Olympics immediately come to my mind. On Thursday, the site of the last Olympics of the 20th century was announced.
The winner is Sydney, Australia.
Beijing, China was considered a favorite among the finalists, but a U.S.-led movement is thought to have played a major role in Beijing being bypassed. Many were disturbed by Beijing's position on human rights.
The decided today to send a very clear message that human rights considerations have a role in the decision of where the Olympic Games go. And, I mean, I hope that maybe as early as the year 2004, China will get the Olympic Games. I think a China that takes its rightful place among nations that respect human rights deserves to have the Olympic Games.
Here's a round-by-round blow of the voting for the site of the 2000 Summer Games. In the first round, Beijing led by 2 votes. Keep in mind, the city needed 45 votes to win. It was Beijing by 7 votes in the second round. They only needed 5 votes once a third round rolled around, but in the fourth round, Sydney, Australia had the necessary votes to overtake Beijing. Another fiercely contested battle, the war for late-night talk show supremacy. Several figures from the sports world contributed to the fun this week, and maybe, just maybe, the word Jeepers could make a comeback.
My brother goes, hey, I got tickets to go to the game. You come tailgating with us. So I come in and my manager calls. He goes, do you want to fight Tommy Morrison? And I've been through this many times. Yeah. So I go, Jeepers, I don't want to, fight him. It's not going to come through. Yeah. So all of a sudden he goes, yeah, well. So all of a sudden, Jeepers.
One word Jeepers, and I'm going to have to take away a point.
Oh, this is great. This is one of the perks of my job. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay. Thank you. Right now, for a limited time only, we have a bat here signed by Ray Boggs, and you can have it for $75.
Jeepers.
Tell me about the gum. How much gum do you enjoy? Do you not use tobacco when you're playing?
Oh, I used to, but, when the dentist keeps pulling teeth, you got to get rid of something, so I just figured the sugar was going to cause less damage than the tobacco, so. About probably 15, 20.
15, 20 what?
Pieces of gum.
Jeepers.
And I told the first base coach, I said, I'm not going. He said, well, you have to. I said, the hell I do.
Jeepers.
Then he hit a ball in the gap, and I had to try to score, and I slid into home, but it really wasn't much of a slide because I had no momentum left. It was just kind of a stick. And I was safe, and Darren Dalton had to pick me up and help me back to the dugout.
Jeepers.
Apparently, I suck at spade.
Jeepers.
One more jeepers, and I'm going to have to take away a point.
I agree, Dave. Up next, football can be rough, but when does rough become costly? The answer when we return.
In just 1 year, something happened to 640 million pounds of chemical pollutants. Instead of becoming waste, they were captured for recycling. The members and partners of the Chemical Manufacturers Association, working for change.
You are here. He has the traveler's checks here. What can you do? Well, carry American Express checks for two. The only traveler's checks that one of you...
And right after we step aside here on Sunday Sports Day, Chris Berman and company will have their say, and a lot of it, on NFL Game Day at noon, including an exclusive interview with a Dallas wide receiver who makes some damaging accusations against the Cowboys organization. Then join Boomer, TJ, and yours truly at 7 p.m. Eastern for all the day's highlights on NFL Primetime. In the NFL, everything old is new again. Running backs, old and new. The league cracks down on some old hits and some new ones. And some old division rivals renew acquaintances. Tom Jackson, who's anything but old, looks at the NFL week that was.
Explosive contests between divisional rivals Washington and Philadelphia have become an annual event. Last week was no exception. The score was tied at 24 with 8 minutes remaining when Reggie Brooks broke loose for an 85-yard touchdown, part of a 154-yard rushing performance for the rookie. 31-24, Skins. But after closing the gap to 31-27, Randall Cunningham took the Eagles on a classic 2-minute drill, completing 6 of 9 for 74 yards. The drive culminated with 4 ticks on the clock as Randall hit Calvin Williams for the winning score. But Cunningham wasn't the only comeback kid. Trailing the Raiders 16-3 in the fourth quarter, Vinny Testaverde replaced the ineffective Bernie Kosar. The Browns responded with 19 points, including Eric Metcalf's 1-yard TD with 2 seconds remaining, keeping Cleveland undefeated at 3-0. Joe Montana made his regular season debut in Kansas City with a 273-yard performance on Monday night. Willie Davis was on the receiving end for 139 yards worth of Montana aerials. But they left the scoring to the toe of Nick Lowry, who split the uprights 5 times in an 8-point win. Here's a simple equation. The Cowboys plus Emmett equals victory. It might not be that simple, but Jimmy Johnson aced Sunday night's exam with a 7-point win over the Cardinals. Smith came off the bench for runs of 12 and 16 yards, easing the tensions in Big D.
It's just good to have him back. You know, I mean, everybody likes him, you know, so well, and he's a great player. It's just nice to have him over there on the sideline, even if he's standing next to me.
Coming back in the game and doing the things that I did made me feel pretty good. I'm still not back in swing. Still got a ways to go, and hopefully I can get there pretty soon.
The NFL came down hard on Cardinals safety Chuck Cecil. An NFL record fine of $30,000 was levied against Cecil for using his helmet on this hit on Washington's Ron Middleton and other similar incidents. Cecil feels he's being singled out for what he thinks is an everyday occurrence in the NFL.
All the players involved, the players on their team, the players on our team, players throughout the league for the most part, all the coaches, I mean, and all the people that actually do the playing don't have a problem with it, but some guy with a suit on and you know, back east thinks that there's something wrong with it.
James Lofton returns to the NFL today, this time in a Rams uniform. The all-time leader in receiving yards was picked up as a free agent after being cut by the Raiders in the preseason.
And more NFL action later. As we take a look at some new wrinkles the Vikings offense may show in their NFC Central showdown with Green Bay today. But up next, it's time to face off. And the subject, a popular one these days, just who is the most valuable player in the National League? That and more when we come back.
There was a lot of Major League crying down in the Texas Ranger clubhouse this week when Nolan Ryan hung up his cleats for good. Because for over 20 years, he's been like baseball's little pink bunny rabbit who just keeps on going and going and oops. So now it's time for Nolan to ride off into the sunset and take his little doggies home. He needs the rest. After all, he's been playing baseball so long, he remembers when the Mets were good. And when his old boss, Gene Autry, could still ride, shoot, sing, and play the guitar all at the same time. Ryan's had the kind of career that's headed for the Hall of Fame. In fact, they're probably getting his space ready right now. And it's all because of that tough Texas cowboy arm. The one that can work over a batter till the cows come home.
It's time for Face Off, our weekly war of words, wit, and wisdom. And as we move into the final week of the baseball season, we ought to be able to figure out who's the most valuable player in the National League. Is it Barry Bonds of the Giants, who leads the league in home runs? Or is it Lenny Dykstra of the Phillies, who leads the league in running home? Bonds has the greater numbers, but has Dykstra had the greater impact? Will the Giants lose even with Barry? Could the Phils have won without Lenny? That's the subject of our face-off today between Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe, who leans toward the taller of the two candidates, and Mike Lupick of the New York Daily News, who is inclined toward the shorter. And Ryan leads off.
Mike, we both know that neither team was going to win without either of them. So let's put that argument aside, okay? Yeah, right over there. Dykstra is important to the Phillies, Bonds important to the Giants. You know what the two most important, I was jumping into my argument now. You know what the two most important categories in offensive baseball are? Let me tell you, Mike. One is on-base percentage and two is slugging percentage. Do you know who's in the National League in both those categories? Won by an astonishing amount, over 100 points? Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds has had the best year of anybody, and he should be the MVP again.
He is the best player. He is the best player, and he's going to get a lot of credit, not just for what he did to the baseball team, but what he did to the city of San Francisco. But you don't vote on MVP for what guys do for cities. What they do for their teams is supposed to be the issue here. Yes. And I just believe that Lenny Dykstra, in his job, leadoff man, Philadelphia Phillies, has had one of the surpassing seasons that any leadoff man has ever had. And I know that you put more weight to the power stats. Fine. His numbers, leading the league in at-bats and hits and runs. He's got a chance to score 150 runs. Those are Ruthian numbers, practically, for runs scored, Bob, from the first day of the season until the last, on a team that is going to win. Lenny Dykstra has been the most valuable player.
I have not come to show any kind of disrespect for Lenny, okay? I love Lenny. I think he's having the best leadoff year of my lifetime, okay? But the fact is that it's going to be a wonderful second place, a wonderful silver medal for him. Barry Bonds got the Giants 10 games ahead. Barry Bonds set the tone for the entire National
So you don't
League.
care if they win? You don't care if the Giants win or not? You're just saying that he's the most valuable player?
The Braves are the best team in baseball, top to bottom, and if the Giants don't win, it's because the Braves were better. But nobody had a better year, had more of an impact, and the city thing does count. Also, let's talk about the Gold Glove in left field that he gives you every single year. Better than 99% of the center fielders.
There is obviously no justice here, nor McGriff, nor Gant, nor anyone else.
No, those guys are wonderful, too. It's a good year. It's a quality year.
Was justice a play on words?
And a quality argument, too. Back to you, Robin.
Still to come on Sports Weekly, the Ryan Express has finally derailed after a brilliant career. But did Nolan ever break the rules? We asked him.
I wouldn't sit here and tell you, no, that I wouldn't do those things.
The Vikings have already made drastic alterations to their sputtering offense. Why change so quickly, Dennis Green?
You have to make bold moves if you want to be good.
Remember the pennant races? 3 of them are all but over. We'll look back at the day the West and East was won. All this and much more when Sports Weekly continues.
I'm on third, and on the first pitch, I go. I'm stealing home. Everyone's going crazy. My manager, the fans, and Patrick. But I'm stealing home. I'm in there. I'm home. And somewhere in Philly, my grandma has one of her spells. Yeah, that's my Sports Center highlight.
I want to recommend and suggest 2 changes that I think that will help the sport of boxing, most certainly help the fans. The first one is an overtime for boxing I feel that after those 3 rounds, then if the draw is there, the draw has to stand. I would like to recommend and suggest to all the world bodies and state commission a running score. When the judges put the score down on the card, it goes up on the scoreboard. Every round, just like they get it, the people, the fans, and the viewing audience around the world gets it. And I think with this here, I think it will remove a lot of the problem area, but it also put boxing into the modern times.
My, what a difference a week can make. Last week here on Sunday Sports Day, we chatted about the Braves and how the NL West pennant was theirs, while the other 3 pennant races were anybody's guess. Well, a mere 48 hours later, a different story. Gary Miller takes a look back.
It started as an ordinary day in the pennant races in 3 divisions. 3 teams with comfortable but not insurmountable leads. The Blue Jays led the Yankees by 4 games. The White Sox held a 4.5-game edge over the Rangers. The Phillies' margin over the Expos was 4.5 as well. Then, play began. Todd Stottlemyre was the hero in the Blue Jays' 5-0 win over Boston. The right-hander shut out the Red Sox on 3 hits, registering 10 strikeouts. The villain in New York, Pedro Munoz, who twice went deep against New York's Jim Abbott. Munoz drove in all 5 Twins runs in the 1-run victory. Abbott's ERA climbed to 4.42. The day the races ended, the Jays' lead was 5 with 12 to go. A performer on the comeback trail, and another whose star keeps getting brighter were the lead players in the AL West race. California's John Farrell combined with reliever Steve Fry to shut out the White Sox 8-0. But Texas could not capitalize. Randy Johnson blanked the Rangers on 3 hits for his 18th win of the season, striking out 11. And Ken Griffey Jr. hit his 42nd homer in the 8-0 shutout. The day the races ended, the White Sox lead was 5 games in the loss column with just a dozen to play. Len Dykstra staked another claim to the MVP honors with a game-winning 2-run homer, his 19th. The man they called the Dude also scored twice, continuing his pursuit of a 150-run score. Mitch Williams nailed down his 40th save that night in a 5-3 win. The Phillies got some assistance from their possible postseason rivals as the Braves routed the Expos 18-5. Fred McGriff and Terry Pendleton combined for 5 hits, 3 homers, and 9 RBIs in the 4th and 5th innings. John Smoltz became the 4th Brave to win 15 games, despite lasting just 6 innings and allowing 5 runs. The day the races ended, the Phillies led the Expos by 5.5 games with 11 to play. The day the races ended, not every race, the NL West still remained. Would it last? Stay tuned.
Up next, the Express stops here as our Sunday conversation features Nolan Ryan. The Ryan Express came to the end of the line on Wednesday in Seattle. Bottom of the 1st, Ryan serves up this grand slammer to Dan Howitt, the last hit he would ever surrender. Not the way Ryan wanted to end his career.
Danny turns to Kevin Kennedy,
he's
and that's
finished.
it.
I can't really say I've ever sat around and fantasized about how I'd like to end my career, but I think yeah, I would have been, if I had, it certainly would have been with a strong performance in a pennant race. And, you know, I guess striking out the last hitter I ever faced.
When the 1993 season ends a week from today, George Brett and Nolan Ryan will end their careers and head straight to Cooperstown. Ryan, who tossed an unheard of 7 no-hitters and is the all-time strikeout king, sat down with our Mark Swartz to reflect on his final season and his career.
I think at one time I was probably as dominating as there was in the league.
Nolan, 27 seasons in the big leagues. No one else has done it. Just the longevity alone, how much does that mean to you?
I think the older I get, the more pride I have in that. In the fact that I've been able to maintain my style of pitching throughout my career.
So what's the secret?
Oh, it has to be genetics, and it has to be the fact that I didn't sustain any injuries that took away from my natural ability.
Nolan Ryan is the 20th pitcher in Major League baseball history to win 300 games.
I've never collected any memorabilia of my own except the strikeout balls in increments of 500. My boys have collected cards, and they had to go out and buy them. And when I was, the first couple of years I was with the Mets, I probably threw away 200 or 300 rookie cards because kids would send them to you with no return address. And so you had no means of getting them back to you. They'd write you and ask you to sign their card, but they wouldn't put any means of getting it back to them as far as a return address. So at the end of the year, when I cleaned my locker out, I didn't keep that stuff. I just threw them all away. And, you know, I never dreamed that they would have the value that they have now.
And you threw hundreds of them out.
Yeah, I would say I threw a couple hundred out.
That's another ranch for you, isn't it?
Well, I'd like to have them right now.
Last month, when you hit Robin Ventura and the brawl broke out against the White Sox, after that, and after the smoke cleared, what surprised me was all the reaction around the league that, yeah, I'm glad Ventura charged him. Charging him is like charging Elvis. Jack McDowell said, it's about time. The umps are gutless to do anything about it with Nolan Ryan. It's like he's a god or something. There was a lot of hostility directed in your direction.
Well, there wasn't a lot. There was a couple that got a lot of exposure. Jack McDowell, and so that whole situation was an overkill. I think that if you went back and asked Robin about it, he probably wished that he hadn't done it. And I personally wish that situation would have never happened, but that's part of the game, and it happened.
Do you think that McDowell, though, had a valid point that the umps do protect you and that there is a double standard?
In fact, I think it's the other way around. I think the umps probably are more stringent as far as the strike zone with me, because I don't think they want the attention that, hey, they're giving Nolan Ryan advantage of the strike zone because of his age or whatever.
You know, after your no-hitter against Oakland 3 years ago, Tony La Russa said, I've got 8 or 10 baseballs here with scuff marks on them. Cito Gaston has accused you of scuffing up the baseball. He said no changeup can move that way unless it's defaced. How do you react to that?
Well, I think that came back in my days in Houston when there was so much of that back in the Mike Scott era. I think a lot of people see my changeup and they react to it that ball, there's something wrong with it. And when I throw it right, it works more as a sinker screwball, and it certainly has been a big impact pitch for me. I think at my age, doing what I've done brings skepticism sometimes.
Is cheating something you would never do?
Well, you have to realize that in the game, whether it's a balk move, whether it's a phantom double play, those things are part of the game. Now, when you say cheating, there's that gray area, and using pine tar to help your curveball, stuff like that. Those are things that are done in the game that are accepted as part of the game. So I wouldn't sit here and tell you, no, that I wouldn't do those things.
Including scuffing the ball?
Right, at times. But I don't do that.
But you have done it at times?
No.
But would you tell me if you had?
No, I wouldn't tell you if I had.
That's it! Number 7 is in the books. The remarkable Ryan has done it again.
You've probably been asked a million times, but how would you like to be remembered?
I don't even think about that.
You know you'll be remembered.
I don't even think about it. You know, people will remember you for whatever it is they want to remember you for. You know, you don't control that, and I don't think about that. I just go about my business the way I feel like I should, and however people want to remember me is fine.
There will never be another Nolan Ryan. He's on the top of more than one list, 5,714 strikeouts, a record 7 no-hitters. His innings pitched over his fabulous career averages to 200 innings pitched per season for his 27 seasons in the majors. Thanks for the memories, Nolan. Next, the quarterback at the helm of the Minnesota Vikings reacts to the change in offensive coordinator.
There were some things that I questioned here and there, but I do that wherever I'm at, you know, because I'm the one on the field having to make decisions at you know, that amount of time.
As was the case at the end of last season, the Minnesota Vikings defense is carrying the load for an offense that appears to be in disarray, although the players prefer to say it's in transition. And the latest move has Frank Burns out as offensive coordinator and Brian Billick in. Andrew Kramer reports from the Twin Cities about a whole lot of changes going on with the Vikings offense.
In the locker room, the Vikings players call him the trigger man. And Dennis Green, who once billed himself as the new sheriff in town, hasn't hesitated to pull out his 6 guns.
You have to make bold moves if you want to be good.
Denny is the boss. He's in control. He lets us all know it from time to time. Sometimes they're surprised. You know, surprise, here's Jim McMahon. You know, surprise, Jack Burns is no longer working here.
Green raised some eyebrows by replacing his offensive coordinator after week 2. The offseason move of bringing in the injury-prone McMahon as his starter over available talent such as Steve Bono, Steve Berline, and Jeff Hostetler was also viewed with skepticism.
Yeah, I wasn't real sure he was a guy for us when I read about it in the offseason when I was back in Tennessee. I didn't think Jim McMahon, you know, I'd heard he was kind of washed up. It was a pleasant surprise when I met him and have been on the field with him. He's all business when he gets to work.
You really don't have to explain why Denny does things. You just have to accept it that Denny did it, and it's best for the team. And that's the way the team looks at it. For the most part, the team does not second-guess Denny.
So after scoring only 17 points in their first 2 games, Green decided to change coordinators, saying he wasn't getting the merger he wanted of the Redskin and 49er systems. Although Burns' dismissal had been rumored for months, McMahon took the heat for the firing.
Yeah, I don't make those decisions. You know, I express opinion to people when I ask a question, but as far as me saying, hey, they got to fire Jack or we're never going to win, that's ridiculous.
We didn't like the way the offense was working. We didn't like the productivity. Our expectations are very high.
Can a new coordinator really make that much of a difference? The players maintain that while they didn't want to see anyone fired, they won't miss Burns' inflexible, rigid attitude. Apparently, Burns took no input from the players or his other assistant coaches. Under new coordinator Billick, not only will the players be heard, but more of them may be seen on game day as well.
Scram 5, right, Robert? Scram 5. Scram 5, you're going to be dreaming about it.
Chris Carter probably was the focal point of our receiving core, and I think now you're going to see the ball being spread out a little bit more.
There'll be some subtle changes, and there'll be some very drastic changes.
Can you give me some specific examples?
Well, we're going to use Steve Jordan more.
15 plays enough to get you the ball, or are we still a little...
I was going to say, I'm so over